Evening, everybody. We are LaunchCode. My name is Jabari Adams. I am one of the managing directors of company relations here at LaunchCode.
I am Jackie Appel, the other managing director of company relations. We're really excited to be here tonight.
So LaunchCode, for anybody that doesn't know, we are a national nonprofit. Just started a hub here in Philadelphia this year. We have a free ed tech program called LC101 that we do, where we teach people how to get into the tech space for free. Then we help them get them a paid apprenticeship, excuse me. And these are people coming from all walks of life, from any career field, any industry. And for me, one of the main purposes for me is that LaunchCode kind of provides opportunity and access, because we have our requirements to get into the program are very open. It allows for a lot of different people to be able to come into the program. So there's no college degree that's needed, there's no specific career path that's needed. We open it up to provide people the opportunity to come in and try something different.
And so, as Jabari mentioned, we recently expanded to Philly. This is our third city hub that we're expanding to from St. Louis and Kansas City. And it was a really intentional move to Philadelphia. And that is why I work for LaunchCode. I love our mission. I love building skills in other people and enabling them to change careers as I did. On top of that, I really love Philadelphia, and I want it to be a city where Philadelphians can thrive, but also businesses thrive. And I think that the tech talent shortage that we see throughout the country is really amplified here. So LaunchCode is here to solve that problem. A little about the tech talent shortage, which I don't think is really a secret to anyone in this room. Over the past 3 decades, tech is really the fastest growing industry. It's a number of reasons, and this isn't expected to slow down in any way. Tech scales a lot faster than any other industry because it's software driven and deployment based. And so once it's out there, it's out there. And the pipeline supplying that talent really can't keep up with the need that we have. That need isn't going away anytime soon. So there are some other factors at play too, besides just demand. Keeping up with the pace of technology changes created a need for technologists at most companies in order just to do business. So who mans your infrastructure? Who deploys your software updates? Who runs your network? Are you still outsourcing all of this, or are you bringing in homegrown talent so that you can continue to expand and scale more easily? From a talent side as well, there just aren't enough computer science graduates entering the workforce as we need. Graduates can't keep up with the demand from tech companies, and focusing only on computer science graduates cuts out a ton of really fantastic candidates that you might be able to look at who can make a huge difference at your company. Aside from that, these graduation rates are even worse in Philadelphia, which we'll talk about in another slide. The last issue to raise is that people are actually retiring out of technology for the first time. So boomers are leaving companies and retiring, and those employers need to be thoughtful about securing their talent pipelines and building the next generation of leadership to replace. It's really important to acknowledge that this is a really unique group of people because they've learned on the job for the most part and have the talent, the aptitude, and drive to have been able to do that. So people who started working, when technology was first coming out and coding wasn't really something big, learned on the job and kept pace with the changes. And that is what I think companies really need to be looking for in their next generation of talent. So in Philly, the struggle is real here. General and post-secondary graduation rates are worse than the national average. And aside from having less graduates here, we have a huge loss of people, a brain drain. Most people are leaving the city for other jobs. The pandemic has actually only contributed to that problem because all of a sudden, remote work is open and you don't have to move to one of the coasts or you don't have to move to a tech hub to work for one of the major tech companies. And that's created a much larger pool of employers looking at the same Philly talent. So if you're a Philly company, How are you going to attract specific talent and compete with everybody else? All of this means that computer science graduates are not the only place that we need to be looking for tech jobs or for tech talent. We need to look at alternative pipelines and to diversify our recruitment efforts. But when we talk about diversifying recruitment efforts, people think about location, right? Like, let's look for a new city, a new place. But at LaunchCode, we're not talking about new cities or places, we're talking about new pools of individuals. People that may not have been thought of in the past and have been historically overlooked. You know, if you're looking to get the same talent as everyone else, and you came to me looking at only colleges and universities, you miss a lot of people that are out there. Next slide. So again, we really can't do a presentation in 2021 without quickly touching on COVID and the effects it's had on the marketplace. The pandemic has only amplified this need for technologists. All of a sudden, essentially, a decade's worth of tech adoption was pushed out within a year. And now companies are playing catch up. I can't tell you how many employers that I talk to that are looking to man yesterday's need because they deployed everything so quickly that they're now playing catch up. So what's the solution to all of this? How do we recruit from different pools of individuals? The answer is actually through skilling. Like, what is skilling, right? And how do we do it? There's a little kind of process along. And the first thing to do is really identify your talent needs, but not your talent needs yesterday or today, your talent needs in the coming years. Yes, you have to consider today, do you need to hire fresh talent to fill in the gaps? But what are you going to need in 5 years? What's scalable for your business? If you're only bringing in people at the top, what are you going to do in 5 years when you need 150 more programmers and you don't have anybody you can promote in and you don't have anybody that can train down because they're all so busy actually deploying and doing the work that they don't have the time to mentor? Reactiveness won't cut it anymore. Skilling your workforce has to be a thoughtful approach and a timely approach to determine your own best fit. So developing a strategy that is going to seek out top talent and retain it. We don't want somebody coming in that you're spending 33% of their year salary on recruiting that's there to get a credential and leave in 2 years, right? Most companies are thinking about, I needed to hire this position last week. But if we take a step back from that immediate need to hire now and think about how many people in the next year or the next 18 months and what strategies we can do that, can we hire in at a certain low level and skill these people to move into the positions that we see that they are going to need in the next 5 years? If we need people to grow, do they have the talent and the aptitude and the drive to grow with us? Remember, the bigger the ship, the harder it is to turn that ship sharply. So we need to start thinking about ramping up early on. If there's a thought process and, putting some thought process into the skilling and recruiting now for the future can take some pressure off so it's not a fire drill when you come to that point. So one of those skilling solutions might be recruiting. It could be filling in the blanks for right now. If your solution is to hire new talent, then your recruiting processes are your starting point. And how do you maintain competitive today? A lot of companies are stuck in the past when it comes to recruiting, and it makes it really difficult to attract people that are have the talent and the aptitude and the drive to keep up with changes. You don't have to raise your hands or anything, but when was the last time your company updated the About Us or the qualifications? Are you hung up on antiquated qualifiers like a GPA or a post-secondary degree, ignoring years of work experience? Are you only looking for a degree in a specific field, ignoring the other ways that people can get to that point? When you've evaluated, or when was the last time you evaluated the language that you used to describe success in this role? I actually once had a candidate that had concerns that a job description was really a, quote, whitewashed way to describe cutthroat and ethics-free culture. I may not have seen that, but people do. And when you're looking at top talent, they're going to see the way that you word things, and they're going to be really interested in seeing a more modern, updated practice these days. Thinking about social media for your recruiting and you're connecting externally, you know, is the job only being advertised amongst your own social network or your employee's social network? You're really kind of creating a feedback loop then where you're not reaching people that are in a new and different community. You're not broadening your reach. And what can you do to actually stay accountable to that? Because it is a consistent every day and every month and every year practice that doesn't go away. So the way that you can do this is actually by thinking about expanding your talent pipelines and advertising to these people specifically. With a limited number of computer science degrees and those graduates leaving Philadelphia, we look for people who have the potential to the potential and the ability to evolve and to learn. And we don't look for the direct credential. We look for non-traditional backgrounds. We look for people that have worked at stores and front-end cash reps to QA test our pay programs after taking a boot camp perhaps. Maybe they landed in that career because at the time they majored in something that wasn't necessarily relevant. They didn't go on. They realized that they want to be in tech and have an interest. If we only look for that computer science degree and we don't look within boot camps and people of non-traditional backgrounds, then we get stuck with that same candidate pool and we're not able to actually expand our talent pipeline and hire the people that we need to. Also, diverse backgrounds really do make a big difference. You know, we bring in a lot of veterans, boot camp changing programs, and as I mentioned, career changers. But also thinking about people who use adaptive technology, people who may have been teachers in a past background who are going to be excellent product managers. Where do you find people like that though? I know it's kind of confusing. Okay, there are so many places we look. The great news is that LaunchCode programs, which are free and intensive, have these candidates in them that are proved that they're ready, they're willing, they're able, and have the drive and the aptitude to continue learning. So in one part of your recruitment and skilling process, LaunchCode can create that alternative pool of talent for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Right, so, you know, talking about that, we take people in our programs and we upskill them in order to become fresh talent in new pools. What do you think our ideal candidate or credential comes to mind? What kind of people do you think?
Depends on job.
Who would enroll in a boot camp? A computer science boot camp?
Yeah, sure. Dropouts, college.
Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom?
Yeah, feel free to unmute on Zoom and answer as well. We can hear you in the room. I was gonna say people looking to make a mid-career change as well. So maybe someone who has done one job, but you know, wants more flexibility with a tech career or something like that.
So what would be those ideal, I guess, skill sets that you look in that particular person? I guess the more specific
That's
question.
true, yeah.
Does anything jump out, like any one or two things that you say, nah, I need this person to have this particular skill set or this particular character trait coming into this field?
Adaptability.
Okay.
Well, it depends on the job, right? Some job takes skill set, and other jobs takes adaptability and ability to learn fast and creative mind. Depends. It really depends on the position.
Yeah, but those are all great. I mean, the ability to have the adaptability, to be able to think creatively. So we're gonna go into what our ideal candidate for LaunchCode would be, essentially. So this is Chrissy. Chrissy is in her mid-50s. She is a widowed spouse from military personnel. She has 3 children. Regular job, no college education. This is our quintessential candidate that we take in. Because what Chrissy brings to the table is experience. Just within those few character traits that I mentioned, she gives you the adaptability, she gives you the persistence, she gives you her ability to, she gives you the determination that you would need to be a good candidate for the job. So November 2018, she applied, she got candidate of LaunchCode, our signature program, LC 101. June 2019, she graduated from LC 101, and then we have another portion of our program where they do some job readiness skills. November of 2019, she gets placed as a developer at MasterCard. They loved her so much at MasterCard, they are now, I think as of next week, actually, they're gonna put her on as a full-time employee. That's kind of how a lot of our students kind of go through that same particular path. They're coming from this extremely diverse backgrounds. They come into the program, they kind of have some of the skills that you had mentioned earlier, which are, the adaptability, the ability to think creatively and to think quick. And they use those skills to get through the program. And then once we put them to the employer, by the time they get to the employer, they're at the top of our talent pool. So we've already kind of vetted them, took them through the process before they even get to the employer.
So it's a year and a half on apprentice position, right?
It depends. So usually they do anywhere between 3 to 6 months, sometimes they go 9. It really depends on the employer's preference.
How definite this time scale for them? Can you tell, hey, this is a plan. If you just stick to the plan, if you go with this workflow, whatever MasterCard offered, that's where you're gonna be. You can plan your, because year and a half, it's a long term for mother of 3 to plan ahead. Don't you think?
There's so it differentiates based on the employer, and one of the things that Jabari and I do is we work closely with employers and candidates to make sure that expectations match. So some places will specifically say we are always 9 months. Other places say, if we like you, we're keeping you on until a position opens.
So they're not blind. They talking. They're both talking through you guys. So that's super important.
And they're also encouraged to communicate with each other because at this point, Chrissy is working at MasterCard. She has a mentor there. She is a mentor at LaunchCode, and working together to get her converted. So we see people as quick as 3 months, but sometimes it does take a year or two.
And Jackie also mentioned earlier in the presentation, she had talked about the importance of skilling. That's something that we take very seriously. So the 2 types of skilling that we normally do are upskilling and reskilling. All right. So reskilling is essentially the example for reskilling would be Chrissy. You take somebody who has already had some type of job experience or something, you put them into a program or some sort of educational program, you teach them a new skill, and then you put them back into a job market. All right, that'd be reskilling. Upskilling is a company taking in their existing talent pool and then taking them and putting them into a completely different role and using that same program and that same process to put the role internally. Okay, and so we're about to talk about an example of our upskilling.
And Leah contributed in the chat. She said also our LC 101 curriculum is part-time, so people can work while they learn. Only the paid apprenticeship is full-time.
Correct. So we make it flexible enough to your point, to make it so that a working adult can still be able to work and still make the program.
They also, I do just want to quickly mention, because this was really important to me, all of our LaunchCode apprentices get healthcare while they're on the part of the apprentice program. So they're technically employed by LaunchCode at that time. We're giving them, they have the same healthcare coverage that we have, and they're making at a minimum $20 an hour.
And we strive to make sure that we hit that mark, because we understand that at the end of the day, somebody like Chrissy who has 3 children people to provide for, they have to make a living wage in order to be able to do that. So there's no point in you sacrificing that time and that money if you're not going to be able to put in a position to succeed. So for our case study for our upskilling example, we had Comcast right here in the city of Philadelphia. So Comcast had a bunch of frontline workers that were their call center workers essentially. So because of the advancement of technology, a lot of the call center for everybody who's in the Zoom part of the room who's ever called Comcast is all automated. So you usually don't talk to a regular person until You sit there for an hour and a half and get to the other side. So what Comcast wanted to do, instead of laying off those workers, they wanted to provide an opportunity for them to upskill and learn something new, to be able to stay in the company, keep their benefits, and keep the company that they like. So what they did was they created, with our help, we created a custom program to take those customer service workers and turn them into junior software engineers. So we put them through a 14-week program. At the end of that 14-week program, we then put them back as technicians in the software development portion. So they were able to essentially take their existing talent pool, who were already experts at all the product, because that's all they did every day. And we turned them into junior software engineers, which allows them another opportunity to not only stay in the company, but learn a skill that in the event that they leave the company, they can take that skill with them and move on to a better paying job. All right, and the program went so well that we went from 12 graduates in the first cohort to now I think we're at 30 in the second one that they're currently doing now. And with the, hopefully with the potential for that number to go up as time goes on, and as the need grows. So that's just one example of a few that us here at LaunchCode, we try to create creative solutions for different companies' needs. And so this diversity and inclusion, which seems to be the hot button word, especially of this past year, given everything that's happened this past year. And one thing I can say about the diversity and inclusion in terms of recruitment when you're trying to look for candidates for positions is that it's imperative that you try to broaden your net, so to speak, and your talent pool as much as you possibly can. Because in broadening that net, you allow for these different types of personalities, these different types of skill sets to come in that you may not have necessarily thought about. And when I'm talking about diversity and inclusion, it's not just race. It's not just gender. We're talking about ethnic and cultural diversity. We're talking about socioeconomic diversity, geographic diversity, linguistic diversity. There's so many other different types of differences that we tend not to think about when we're talking about hiring that make a huge difference when you're trying to bring people into a team and you're trying to grow. So one thing that we do and we pride ourselves on is that because we have because our criterion to come into the program is so general, we kind of broaden that scope. And we found that just within the first class that we've done here in Philadelphia, most of the programs around here normally take in about 15 and maybe at max 30 people in that cohort. We took in 160, 150 in the cohort, and that was out of 800 applicants. I'm sorry, I said 800 applicants, and we had phenomenal applicants. So now we know coming into the next cohort, the applicant pool hopefully is just going to grow, and the more people that we get, the more inclusive it is for the people in our, we get that geographic diversity, so we get people in the city of Philadelphia. So we're not pulling from somebody from New York to come down here. We're pulling from somebody who lives right up the street in North Philly, in the Temple area, to come down here and go through the program, which then gives you some homegrown talent that of which you may not have been able to see had you not opened up that pool to say, you know what, maybe instead of going for the college grad, I'll go for this person who got out of high school and might have worked 2 or 3 jobs while they were in high school to support their family and do such and such. Because that shows the determination, that shows the resourcefulness of that particular person to kind of make some, make something out of nothing, so to speak, to get to that program. So, last but not least, for the people in the chat, or for the people, for the gentlemen here in the room, for the companies that you work for, what kind of challenges are you facing in terms of recruiting people, recruiting talent for your companies? Is it the skill set? Is it just the lack of applicants in general? Is it the competency? Is it the personality? Is it their ability to, I know we're living in a virtual world right now, but is it even their ability to be able to communicate effectively with people, whether that be in person or online? Because as much as people would like to think that that's not a thing, it's a very needed skill to be able to communicate effectively. So I'm just opening the question up to anybody on the chat, or any gentleman in the room.
Yeah, and again, if you're on Zoom, feel free to unmute and contribute too.
Oh, yeah, share the presentation.
Oh, yep, we can, yep.
So if anybody,
I'm bilingual, I'm hiring in Ukraine,
that's awesome.
that's my advantage.
So why in Ukraine and not here? Is that where your business is based or?
Cheaper, so outsourcing, and they good specialists for IT, they super good, it's good old school, and no safe spaces, their colleges, tough workers, you know, and dollars heavy there, so no brainer, right? If I can speak Hindu, I will do the same with Indian region.
So essentially for you, that linguistic diversity, so if you had a candidate.
That's my advantage.
Gotcha.
But other than that, yeah, all this set of skills is super important. Again, depend on specialty, what you're looking for, but communication skill is number one issue these days, especially because you know, I think I'm a boomer, right? But I suppose if I, right,
It depends on
I'm 50, right? So
Okay.
it's like somewhere where they're supposed to hire young people to, you know, young energetic people, but I'm reluctant. I wanna see like good old dudes like I am instead, because it's easier communication for me. So it's,
Right.
so the match, you know, ability to talk to between generations is also super important. You didn't mention it, but it's.
That's a very good point, though. That generational gap is a huge factor for companies that are a little bit older, or companies that have older executives in their company. Because like you said, in your experience is you want to see somebody who's had time to kind of go through some things in life, and you see that they've, you know, been loyal to a particular company. So you would like to see somebody who maybe at your age might say, I've been in the same company for 20 years. Or somebody my age, like, I average about 3 or 4. But it might be, like you said, it might be that particular skill set that you might be looking for, say, yeah, but if I offer you the right thing and I kind of put you in position to grow and I create an environment for you to grow, there might be a possibility that you might decide to stay to be able to do that. Possible.
Right, so there is a trade-off, like these days the field is growing so fast that any specialist you want to invest should be able to adapt, as you just said, right? Adaptivity should be able to adapt to new stuff really fast. No, but on the other hand, mother of 3, like your ideal Chrissy, right? She has probably different talents. So you have to be smart about what your plans are.
Right.
If you want to just be a quick company and sell it, you don't care about like 15 years plan for the future. That's one thing. And Comcast probably thinking like 25. They probably talking to Drexel, just, you know, like, can you give us 50 people in that particular field in 5 years? So it's totally different planning.
I think when we look at companies like Comcast, though, you know, there is a level of giving back there too, because they are so big and you can't just lay off all of these people. And I mean, you can, but the optics of it are very bad. And so upskilling or reskilling them to redeploy within. But also above that, what Comcast recognizes is that these are the people that are using the equipment and troubleshooting it all day. So some of the people, they took about half of them, and even though they're trained as software engineers, they're now QA analysts or QA engineers. And so they're actually kind of going back to the original products that they were working with. And I think that for a place like that, there's that ability to recognize. At the same time, you know, we are working with really like an angel in Fishtown who's doing really well and receiving a lot of funding repeatedly. And although most of the people that they're hiring in are all software engineer 2, 3, 4, they're actually beginning an apprentice program while they have less than 150 people or so on staff. So they tripled in the past 3 years or so, and now they're adding on an apprentice program with the goal being to actually train people in their product and create the kind of talent and skills that they need, and also then to get these people out to evangelize their product and use it elsewhere. And so that is what I would say is an example of a really thoughtful approach to how you're going to give back within your community and also take advantage of people who have non-traditional backgrounds and also continue to create a wider pool of talent, because having more people that are talented in Philadelphia is good for Philadelphia and it's good for companies here, right? Like we want everybody to get the cream of the crop. We don't want people moving to New York when they graduate Penn or when they graduate Drexel. We want them staying in Philadelphia. We want them paying taxes here. We want them working for your company.
No, this is great what you're doing, it's great. That's what Drexel does with co-ops, right? But you're doing, you just taking the co-ops idea for everybody else.
Yeah,
This is
not
great.
everybody has the same, ability to do that when they went to college. I studied math in undergrad and, I am now working at a nonprofit. I spent years in fintech and I decided to reskill myself by going to UPenn to get a degree in nonprofit management. I know you think I'm crazy. Talk to my parents. Anyway, I have the ability to take on debt to reskill myself to do something different for passion. But there are a lot of people that necessarily, don't have the ability to take on that debt and do that. And that's why LaunchCode is here really, so that we can get people to change, but also so that we can partner with companies and help them find their right skilling solution.
And I mean, and I think for anybody else on the call too, please feel free to hop in. But another thing, I think one of the examples from personal experience of us trying to take people who have these diverse backgrounds, I have a background in education and teaching. So at no point in time did I ever think I was ever going to be anywhere close to anything in tech at all. Like it was just one thing that I just knew that wasn't my thing and I was just going to stay away from it. But I think being in education allowed me to see, allowed me to be able to speak to looking at people from so many different backgrounds and trying to figure out as you're doing a hiring process or even in the classroom, you're trying to figure out, okay, like this student might be exhibiting this particular behavior, this particular thing, but what is their talent? What is their niche that they do that I can recognize in this classroom in the midst of all of this chaos that's going on? And once you pick that out, and once that student understands that that's their talent, it completely opens up 100 different doors about where they can go and what they can do. Once they now they're aware of that talent and they can control it and they start to develop it. So I think, so for anybody else, do you gentlemen, do you all have any challenges in either hiring or, finding different types of people to fill, different types of positions in your company, are there any other challenges that you guys find at all? Or have found in the past or experienced yourself?
I'm looking for work, I'm not hiring. So
even in looking for, what do you, right, with the jobs that I'm assuming that you've been to, that you might not have gotten the result that you wanted,
right.
Have they given you any feedback about what they felt like might have been missing or what they might have been looking for, anything like that? Because a lot of companies don't give that feedback, which I don't understand why.
Right. I think of a good example, but I find that just knowing. I think even if someone doesn't have the exact educational or work experiences, if they have applicable skills in some other area, that goes a long way. And if a job candidate knows how to communicate that, or or they can just show that they're able to adapt. I think that goes a long way.
I mean, that's good, because that's a two-pronged challenge of the candidate understanding how to relate their previous experience to that job and make it applicable.
Right.
But it also kind of lends itself to the employer of saying, listen, I know this is who you normally go after. Clearly, it's not really working that well for you, so it's in your best interest to at minimum just try it out, see what happens. You have this, it's not like, you know, people are knocking down your door, so just try it, see what happens. If it doesn't work, cool, you can kind of pivot and move to something else. But if you never open it up to say, hey, maybe I should try this person who I would normally say, I'll take their resume, let me at least get them an interview. And I think a lot of people, and I'm sure yourself is included, like, if people are just judging you off the paper that comes in on the email, 9 times out of 10 they're saying no, and they're moving on to the next one. But if you can get in front of somebody and they can feel, they can get your personality, they can get, so they can get some personal stories in there, that then changes their perspective. Because like you said, they can now say, okay, this person just said, they just mentioned that they're a dog walker and somehow they made a connection between them being a dog walker and them doing the software. I don't know how the heck they just did that, but that's somebody that I want on my team. That's what we're trying to create with LaunchCode. We're trying to create that bridge and that opportunity for people to be able to get in front of people so that they can at least get the opportunity. And then once we get you in the door, that's, you know, that's on you. But our job is to create that bridge to get you through that.
And really to help employers see that there is so much talent that exists outside of the parameters of a very strict job description and qualification section, even within their own office. So that's why, you know, places like Comcast or MasterCard or Centene that we have worked, or Express Scripts, to upskill people in actual, we're part of the company. You know, we come in and we vet applicants from within the company because that's what our specialty is. You know, we have this kind of special sauce of finding the right people that are going to be successful, to the point that 80% of LaunchCode apprentices go on to become full-time hires and have stayed at their jobs for over 3 years. So that's the other thing, is they become really dedicated employees. Yeah.
Any questions on that? All right, good.
Any questions in the chat?
Well, if there's no questions, we appreciate you all for coming, both online and in person. Thank you. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us.
If you're watching this on YouTube later, our website is www.launchcode.org. Check out our page.
I was just wondering, how do people wind up in the LaunchCode program? I mean, how do they find, like, I've never heard of you about you till today. Do companies have people that they're going to lay off and they know about LaunchCode and they put it in the program, or?
A whole mix. And then we've done a lot of intentional outreach in neighborhoods that are typically kind of ignored by programming here. So
Okay, so you go looking for people.
we do. We advertise. We did Instagram campaigns. We had Halen Allen from the Ellen Show doing some kind of thing for us.
Our VP here has been on news a couple of times.
Okay, I thought it was maybe companies who were going to lay off people instead of laying them off.
I wish it was
bring them to you. And
we're trying to get it to a point where that is like that, and I think that's our goal. I think, like I said, we just started in the Philadelphia market in January. So we're still in the beginning stages of trying to get our name out there and trying to get people to understand what it is we do. And also the challenge of letting everybody know that this is not a scam. Because I think when people hear free, the first thing they think of, like, yeah, no, that's not true. There's no way that you can do all of this for free. But I mean, it's truly for free. Like, there's no cost to the candidate that's coming in.
A lot of paid boot camps.
Right.
That is one of my, I was wondering, yeah, do the candidates pay for this, or do the company?
It is
The hiring companies pay or something like that?
the way it works is we do get funding. We were actually founded by Jim McKelvey, who co-founded Square Payments. And so we were kind of kicked off with like a huge, with some kind of endowment from him. And then we get foundational funding, but we don't do government programs particularly, because that usually limits who we can accept from age, gender, all different bases. And then the part of the apprentice program is that when an employer hires a LaunchCode apprentice, there is a fee for the hire, and that goes back into the program. And so that's invested to keep the programs free.
So the company kind of pays you for finding a person,
Essentially,
which
yeah.
just makes sense, because that's.
Right, but I mean, but then again, they still get the benefit of being able to try somebody out, and if it just doesn't work out, they can kind of say, okay, it didn't work out, and then that's it. So it's not like we're putting people on retainers and saying, hey, you got a year contract with us, you gotta stay. It's like, no, it's kind of like a Netflix model. Like, you know, you see something, you like it,
Very good.
pick it. When you don't like it, keep going. And then we just keep this process going until, you know, the goal is, and in our experience in our St. Louis location, the more great candidates we send you, the goal is that we're going to be the first person you come to receive those great candidates, because you just know that we put them through such a great learning process and then job readiness program that by the time they get to you, they're ready. There's no prep, they're just ready to go. So that's the goal. So hopefully by the summer, hopefully you will be seeing more of us, and then you'll know. There won't be a question about who we are, what we do, but it's going to take time for us to.
You also mentioned about people, you know, being let go from jobs. And I was working in fintech in 2009, 2010, 11, 12, and I saw a lot of people be let go from, you know, large institutions, and a number of them invested in trainings for people for months afterwards, so that they could essentially keep up with their skills and redeploy elsewhere. And I know that would be, if an employer came to us and said, or if we found an employer that was going to lay off a large portion but had some kind of charitable giving left to be able to do, you know, we would wholly be interested in training people and then helping place them afterwards. Especially if it was going to be a large, you know, and it's similar essentially to what Comcast is planning to do now. In a shorter, I don't want to say they're planning to lay people off because that would get me a lot of trouble, but in a shorter that they know that eventually people's jobs are going to be automated out, and so they're giving those people the opportunity to learn and redeploy.
Yeah, I asked that question because when I was laid off from Lockheed Martin, that was one thing I was grateful for. They gave us a lot of help
Yeah.
finding a new job. And LaunchCode wasn't around then, but I'm sure like if it was, you know, they would have had like some people brought them to you. You know?
We work with Boeing, so, you know, similarly enough to bring talent into them as well, especially their talent.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. This is awesome to learn more about LaunchCode. And everyone check out the LaunchCode website if you want to learn more. It's launchcode.org.